Story 1. I lived in a bizarre little house as a child. It was tall and thin, like a townhouse that forgot it was supposed to have neighbors on either side. 3 floors, a basement, an attic. A backyard so small you couldn't take 5 steps without hitting the fence. A dumbwaiter that ran from the kitchen up to my bedroom. Old fireplaces that still worked. A shower stall in the middle of the basement floor for reasons no one could explain. I loved that house. It was weird and crooked and full of secrets, but it was also falling apart. The repair costs got too high. My parents decided to move. I was 12 when we started packing, and that's when I found the attic. I packed most of my room myself: clothes, toys, books. I'd been using the dumbwaiter to send stuff downstairs, shove it in, pull the rope, listen to it, clatter down 3 floors. It was faster than carrying everything. My closet was a disaster. I'd been shoving clothes in there for years, so deep and so thick that they'd fused into a single solid brick of fabric. I was pulling it all out, piece by piece, when I noticed something I'd never seen before. A hatch in the ceiling, right there, in the back of the closet, a square of wood with a small metal latch. I'd walked past it 1,000 times. I'd stood directly under it 1,000 times, but I'd never looked up. I was 12. I was curious. I was also stupid. I stacked the clothes brick back into the closet, climbed up, and pushed the hatch open. The first thing I noticed was that it wasn't dark up there. Old red Christmas lights were strung across the ceiling, still glowing, not bright like they'd been left on for years and were only now starting to fade. The light was dim and warm and wrong. It made everything look like it was underwater. There were cracks in the floorboards, little holes, peepholes. I could look down through them and see straight into the bedrooms below, mine, my parents', my brother's. The attic floor was basically a grid of tiny windows looking down on everyone sleeping. I wondered who had made them. I wondered who had been watching. The attic wasn't empty. Someone had been living up here, or at least someone had been staying. The insulation was pulled away from the walls, covered in plastic sheeting. An old metal gurney was pushed against one wall, piled with sleeping bags and sheets. A rusted mint green refrigerator sat in the corner. I opened it. It still worked. Cold air hit my face. There were cigarette butts in a coffee can, a stack of newspapers from the 1980s, a camping lantern, a portable radio. Someone had lived in this house, above my bedroom, without any of us knowing. Then I saw the piles. Bones. Dozens of them, maybe more, stacked in half a dozen heaps around the center of the attic. Small bones and large bones, clean bones and dirty bones. Bones that looked like they'd come from birds and bones that looked like they'd come from something bigger. I was a kid. I didn't know what I was looking at. Not really. I knew they were bones. I knew they didn't belong there. But I didn't understand the full shape of what I was seeing. 2 of the piles were different. The bones were blackened, charred, like someone had tried to burn them. And the walls near those piles were covered in writing. Dark, smudged, like someone had used a burnt bone as a charcoal stick. Most of it was just smears, shapes that might have been letters, might have been nothing. But one word appeared more than once. Sorry, written over and over, on the walls, on the floorboards, on the back of the refrigerator. Sorry, sorry, sorry. I didn't tell anyone. I was 12. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to explain what I'd found. I didn't know if I'd done something wrong by opening the hatch. So I closed it, stacked my clothes back in front of it, and I didn't tell anyone. We moved a few weeks later. I never went back up there. But for the rest of my childhood, I thought about that room, the lights, the bones, the word on the wall. I thought about how long someone had been up there, how long they'd been watching through the cracks in the floorboards, how long they'd been sleeping above me while I slept below. And I thought about the bones. What they were, where they came from, who they belonged to. I never asked. I never told my parents. I never told anyone. I'm an adult now. I live in a normal apartment. No dumbwaiters, no hidden hatches, no old Christmas lights still burning in places they shouldn't. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that attic. I think about the person who lived up there, the sleeping bags, the refrigerator, the cigarette butts. Someone stayed in that house, in that tiny space, for long enough to make it a home, and no one knew. I think about the cracks in the floorboards, the holes looking down into my bedroom, how easy it would have been to watch, to wait, to be there, inches away, while I slept. I come, end. I think about the bones, the piles of them, the ones that had been burned, the word on the wall, scratched over and over, like a prayer or a confession. Sorry. I don't know what happened in that attic. I don't know who lived there. I don't know what they did, or why, or when they left. But I know that for 8 years, I slept in a room with a hatch in the ceiling, and for 8 years, something was up there. Sometimes I wonder if I should have told someone, if I should have said something. If a 12-year-old kid who found a room full of bones and a word written on the wall had a responsibility to do more than close the hatch and pretend it didn't happen, I don't know. But I know this: when I think about that house now, I don't think about the dumbwaiter or the fireplaces or the weird little backyard. I think about the red glow of old Christmas lights through cracks in the floor. I think about the piles of bones stacked like offerings. I think about the words scratched into the wall, over and over in the dark. Sorry. And I wonder who they were apologizing to.
Story 2. I'm 23 now, but this happened about 10 years ago when I was around 13 or 14. I've told the story a few times over the years, but even now, it still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. It wasn't something supernatural. No ghosts, no monsters, nothing like that. Just a man. And somehow that made it even worse. Back then, my entire life revolved around skateboarding. If I wasn't at school or sleeping, I was usually out riding around town with my 2 friends, Tim and Brandon. Our town was small enough that you could skate almost everywhere without too much trouble. We knew every cracked sidewalk, every curb that was good for grinding, every parking lot that security didn't care about. That particular day felt like any other. It was late afternoon, the kind where the sun is starting to dip but there's still plenty of light left. We'd been skating for a few hours already, moving from one spot to another, messing around, trying tricks we'd seen in videos and failing most of them. Eventually, we got tired and thirsty, and someone suggested we stop by the 7-Eleven near the highway. It was a pretty common stop for us. Cheap drinks, snacks, and a place to sit down for a few minutes. So we skated over there. None of us had cars yet, obviously, so skateboards were basically our transportation. We leaned our boards against the wall outside the store and went inside to grab drinks. I remember the blast of cold air from the AC when the door opened. It felt amazing after being outside for hours. We spent a few minutes wandering around the aisles, deciding what we wanted. Tim grabbed some energy drink, Brandon got a soda and a bag of chips, and I grabbed one of those huge plastic cups for a fountain drink. Nothing unusual happened inside the store, just normal small-town convenience store stuff. A couple people in line, someone buying lottery tickets, the cashier looking bored. After we paid, we stepped back outside. The air felt warmer again after the AC, and the sky had started turning that orange color you get in the evening. We grabbed our boards and walked toward the exit of the parking lot. The 7-Eleven sat right next to a highway that ran through our town. It wasn't one of those massive city highways with constant traffic, but cars still passed through regularly. There was a traffic light right by the intersection, so usually we just waited for it to turn red before crossing. We stopped near the edge of the parking lot and waited. That's when I noticed him. At first, it was just a glance over my shoulder. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I was just kind of scanning the parking lot the way people do when they're standing around waiting. One of the gas pumps had a white pickup truck parked beside it. A man was filling the tank. He looked like he was probably somewhere in his 40s or maybe early 50s. I didn't stare long enough to pick out exact details, but I remember his posture more than anything. Something about the way he was standing felt tense. But the thing that stuck with me was that he was staring directly at me, not casually, not like someone just glancing over. He was locked onto me. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Adults stare at teenagers sometimes, especially when you're a group of skaters hanging around a store. Usually, it's just annoyance. So I looked away. A second later, I glanced back again. He was still staring. Then, something strange happened. The man suddenly dropped the gas pump. He didn't hang it up. He didn't finish pumping. He just let it fall and immediately climbed into his truck. I remember feeling confused for half a second. Then the engine roared to life. Before I could even process what was happening, the truck lurched forward and accelerated straight toward us. For a moment, my brain refused to believe it. You know that split second where something so unexpected happens that your mind just kind of freezes? That's what it felt like. The headlights were coming right at us. Then, instinct finally kicked in. We jumped out of the way just as the truck shot past. I felt something slam into my arm and suddenly my skateboard went flying out of my hand, clattering across the pavement. The truck missed us by inches. Brandon yelled something like, "What the hell, you freaking idiot." But the driver didn't slow down. He sped past us and swung the truck into another parking lot next to the 7-Eleven. For a second, we just stood there, stunned. Then the truck turned around and came back. This time, it was obvious. He wasn't just driving recklessly. He was aiming for us. The engine roared again as he sped straight toward where we were standing. That's when the panic hit. All three of us took off running. We sprinted across the highway without even thinking about traffic. I remember hearing a horn somewhere behind us, but I didn't look back. Adrenaline does weird things to your body. Everything felt louder and faster at the same time. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. We ran toward the local library, which was about 2 or 3 blocks away. It was the closest building we could think of. The idea was simple. Get inside. We ran as fast as we could. Our skateboards were useless at that point, so we just carried them while sprinting. I remember the sound of our shoes hitting the pavement, the rattling of boards, and Brandon breathing hard beside me. When we were about half a block away from the library, I glanced back. That's when I saw the truck again. The maniac had crossed the highway and was speeding toward us. Even from that distance, I could feel the anger in the way the truck moved. It wasn't just chasing us, it was hunting. Tim and Brandon kept running toward the library doors, but I suddenly realized something. It was Sunday. The library was closed. At the same moment, another thought hit me. Behind the library, there was a wooded area with a small trail. I'd taken that trail a few times before. It eventually connected to the neighborhood where I lived. Without really thinking, I changed direction and ran toward the woods. Tim and Brandon kept heading for the library entrance. I heard the truck screech as it pulled into the library parking lot. When I reached the edge of the woods, I turned around for a split second. The truck had stopped. The driver's door flew open. The man jumped out and ran to the back of the truck. He reached into the bed and grabbed something. Even now, I'm not completely sure what it was. It looked like it might have been a shotgun or maybe a crowbar. I was already far away and everything was happening so fast that my vision felt blurry. But whatever it was, it definitely looked like a weapon. Then he started running toward the woods, toward me. That moment still sticks with me more than anything else. Because until that point, I thought he was chasing my friends. I thought I had just run in a different direction. But Tim later told me he watched the guy run after me. Not them, me. I didn't wait to see how close he got. I turned and ran as fast as I possibly could down the trail. Branches slapped against my arms and legs as I pushed through the trees. The ground was uneven and covered with roots and rocks. A couple times I nearly tripped, but somehow managed to stay on my feet. Every few seconds, I thought I heard something behind me. Footsteps. Branches snapping. But I was too afraid to turn around. I just ran. The trail eventually led into my neighborhood. When I burst out of the woods onto my street, I was completely out of breath. My lungs felt like they were burning and my legs were shaking from adrenaline. That's when I saw my neighbor, who also happened to be Tim's dad. He was sitting in his car near the curb. As soon as he saw me, he rolled down the window and shouted for me to get in. Apparently, Tim and Brandon had already run to the local video store where Tim's mom worked. They told her what happened and said they didn't know if I was alive. Everyone thought the man had caught me. So my neighbor was driving over there to figure out what was going on. I jumped into the car and we drove straight to the video store. When we got there, I saw Tim and Brandon standing inside with 3 police officers. The moment they saw me, they looked like they'd just seen a ghost. A minute later, my mom rushed in. She had tears streaming down her face. Brandon and Tim had told her they thought I'd been captured. She hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. The police asked us a bunch of questions about the truck and the man, but none of us had gotten a good enough look at him to give a useful description. They searched the area but never found him. No one ever figured out who he was. And that's the part that stayed with me for years. Every time I saw a white pickup truck after that, my heart would start racing. For the next 5 years, I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting that same truck to appear again. The scariest part of the whole thing, though, was something I realized later. Our town isn't empty. While all of this was happening, there were dozens of people around the 7-Eleven, cars at the pumps, people in the parking lot, drivers on the road, probably close to 100 people within sight of what was happening, and yet when we ran for our lives, not a single person stepped in to help. 3 kids were being chased by a grown man in a truck, and everyone just watched. That feeling of helplessness is something I still remember very clearly. We hadn't done anything to provoke him. We were just kids trying to get home after buying drinks. But for whatever reason, that man decided we were his target. And to this day, I have no idea why.
Story 3. I don't use my real name online. Not on Facebook, not on Instagram, not even on Reddit. I have 3 different email addresses, 2 phone numbers. I've moved 4 times in 5 years. I check the locks on my doors every night. I check them again before I go to sleep. And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and check them again. My friends think I'm paranoid. My boyfriend thinks I have anxiety. My mother thinks I'm just careful. None of them know what it's like to be hunted. My ex used to stalk me, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is that it started long before we broke up. The worst part is that I didn't even know I was prey until it was too late. I met him when I was young, too young. The kind of young where you don't know what love is supposed to feel like, so you take whatever someone gives you and tell yourself it's enough. He was charming at first. They always are. Sweet words, big promises, the whole performance. The first time he hit me, I told myself it was an accident. The second time, I told myself I deserved it. By the 10th time, I stopped making excuses. I just learned how to hide the bruises. He forced himself on me sexually. That's a clean way of saying it. The truth is uglier. The truth is that there were nights when I said no and he didn't care, nights when I cried and he kept going, nights when I just lay there staring at the ceiling waiting for it to be over. His mother knew. She would hide in her room while it happened. When I left, she would come downstairs and say goodbye to me like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't heard anything, like she hadn't chosen to do nothing. The worst time was when I refused. I said no, 1 word. That's all it took. He grabbed me by my hair, pulled me up the stairs, and threw me back down. I landed on my ribs. The bruise stayed for weeks. Every time I breathed, I felt it. Every time I moved, I remembered. That was the night I started planning my escape. I left him eventually. It took months of planning, saving money, finding a place, waiting for the right moment when he was gone, long enough for me to pack my things and run. I thought that was the hard part. Getting out, surviving the relationship. I was wrong. The breakup was the beginning. What came after was worse. It started with texts, new numbers every time. I'd block one and another would pop up, like a hydra. Cut off one head, 2 more grow back. At first, they were almost romantic, in a sick way. He had this whole story he'd made up about us being wolf cubs, soulmates, destined to be together. He'd send paragraphs about how we were meant to find each other, how we were special, how no one else could understand. Then, the story changed. He started sending threats, graphic ones. He hoped my new boyfriend would torture me, kill me. He described in detail what he wanted to happen to my body, what he wanted to do to me if he found me. I stopped reading them eventually. I'd see the preview and delete. But sometimes, late at night, I'd open them anyway, like picking at a wound. I needed to know how much danger I was in. I needed to know how far he was willing to go. The answer was always, further than I thought. The text stopped after a while. I'd changed my number twice by then, but he found other ways. Fake social media accounts, 5 at a time, sometimes more. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. He'd make a new one every time I blocked the old ones. They'd pop up in my requests, in my messages, in my notifications. He would send my old address over and over, my parents' address, just the numbers in the street, no message, no explanation, just the address, like a reminder that he knew where I used to be, like a promise that he could find me again. I stopped using social media altogether, deleted everything, went dark. For a while, it worked. The messages stopped, the account stopped appearing, I started to breathe again. Then he showed up at my work. I was working at a restaurant. I was behind the counter when I saw him walk through the front door. My whole body went cold. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, and for a second, I thought he saw me. I ran upstairs to the office, hid there until a coworker told me he was gone. He'd walked around the restaurant once, then left. I don't know if he saw me. I don't know if he knew I was there. I'll never know. I quit that job a few weeks later, moved again, changed my number again. I thought I was safe after that. New city, new job, new number, new life. Then one day, I was working at a deli counter, just doing my job, slicing meat, wrapping cheese, smiling at customers. And then I saw him. He walked into the store looking frantic. Wild. Like he was on a mission. He went up and down every aisle, staring at every employee, scanning every face. I ran to the break room before he could see me. I sat on the floor behind the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. He stayed for half an hour. My coworker said he walked around the store at least 15 times. 15 laps, looking for me. I quit that job too, moved again, changed my number again, removed myself from the internet entirely, no social media, no online presence, nothing. It's been a year now since the last incident, a year since I saw his face, a year since I got a message from a fake account, a year since I felt his eyes on me. I've moved again, 2 hours away from where he lives. I live with my boyfriend now. We've been together for 3 years. He knows some of what happened, not all of it. Enough to understand why I lock the doors 4 times a night. Enough to understand why I check my surroundings every time we go out. Very few people know where I live. I want it to stay that way. I've rejoined social media, new accounts, all private, no real name, no identifiable photos. I've blocked every account I could find that might be connected to him, his friends, his family, the fake accounts he used to use. I'm more careful now than I ever was. I never accept friend requests from people I don't know. I never post my location. I never check in anywhere. I never let my guard down. My friends think I'm paranoid. They laugh when I double check the locks. They roll their eyes when I ask who's coming to a party before I agree to go. They don't understand. My boyfriend thinks I have anxiety. He's kind about it. He holds me when I wake up from nightmares. He checks the locks for me when I ask, but he doesn't understand either. How could he? He's never been hunted. I still have nightmares. In them, I'm always running. Through stores, through streets, through houses I've never seen. And he's always behind me. Close enough to touch. Close enough to grab. I wake up with my heart racing. Sometimes I check the locks again. Sometimes I just lie there, listening to the silence, waiting for morning. I don't know if he's still looking for me. I don't know if he's given up. I don't know if he's found someone else to hunt. But I know I'll never be the same. I used to be open, trusting. I used to post photos of my life, my friends, my adventures. I used to walk down the street without looking over my shoulder. I used to sleep through the night. I can't do any of that anymore. I've built walls around myself, digital walls, physical walls, emotional walls. I've locked myself away in a life so small and so quiet that I hope he'll never find me. And sometimes I wonder, is this living? Is this freedom? Is this what survival looks like? I don't have an answer. All I know is that I'm still here, I'm still breathing, I'm still safe, and that has to be enough. If you're reading this and you're in a relationship that hurts, leave. Don't wait, don't make excuses, don't believe that it will get better. It won't. If you're reading this and you're being stalked, document everything. Screenshots, messages, dates, times. Go to the police. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Make noise. Don't suffer in silence. And if you're reading this and you think it could never happen to you, think again. I thought the same thing. I thought I was smart. I thought I was strong. I thought I could handle it. But no one handles being hunted. No one survives it without scars. I'm still here. I'm still hiding. And I don't know if I'll ever stop.